Welcome to the Nerd Party.
Hi, this is Henry Gilroy, co-executive producer of Star Wars Rebels. You're listening to Aggressive Negotiations.
Porgs are roasting on an open fire. Octus miss snipping at your nose. It's that time of year. Here at Aggressive Negotiations for Thanksgungan. And Thanksgungan to you. Hey, John, aren't you excited for Thanksgungan?
Oh my gosh, it sounds like somebody that isn't me has already gotten into the spotchka. So yes, I'm thrilled for it. Yeah, you know, here it is, everybody. Our annual Thanksgungan show where we give thanks for all of the things in the Star Wars galaxy, everything in the Star Wars real world, this or that we're thankful for. We're thankful for you listening. We're thankful that you go over to thenerdparty.com/contact and drop us a line. We are thankful that you check us out online on social media at the Jedi Masters on Twitter and finding us through the network at Join Nerd Party on Twitter and the Nerd Party on Instagram and Facebook. We are grateful for all of that. But I'll tell you what, Matt, something I am grateful for this year, possibly more than any other year that we've done it, is Thanksgungan itself. Because this is a silly little punny joke that we made back in our first year of creating this show, and it has carried forward. And boy, oh boy, what a tremendous tradition we have built with Thanksgungan. This is an episode that I look forward to every single year, the way that 20th Century Fox thought everybody was going to look forward to the Star Wars holiday special every year.
Yeah, they thought we were going to look forward to that, and then nobody ever wanted to see it again. In fact, George Lucas has done his best to lock it into a vault to never be seen again. So I have unfortunately seen it, and there was not enough eye bleach to make things better. So, yeah.
I am half convinced because it was the late 70s, the era of Studio 54 and a lot of different types of experimentation going on in American culture at the time. I almost wonder if one should drink a large quantity of spotchka before watching it, in which case it will make some sort of sense. Because, what's amazing is that the Star Wars Holiday Special is the thing that I am thankful for because it's such a running joke. It is such a thing that is just a part of being a Star Wars fan, despite the fact that so many people have never seen it, that they went ahead and they made a Lego Star Wars Holiday Special. Because I'm thankful that they have some sign there that we're still allowed to have a sense of humor about this, that we don't have to take Star Wars so seriously that everything is a life or death situation and question of canon, that we can sort of, sit back and relax. And regardless of what we thought of the final product, at least we just had a little bit of fun with it.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you. That Lego Holiday Special was just a joy. It's just so much fun, and like you said, I think the one of the things the Lego specials do and the Lego games do so well is they help you have fun with Star Wars. And, it's meant to be, they're meant to be goofy and silly and all of those things. And you're not supposed to take them seriously. It's just a way to have fun. I really truly think of it as the way in which, you would play with your action figures. That's what those Lego specials are truly like. So yeah, I'm right there with you. It's fun that they brought it back. It's fun that we can poke fun at ourselves. I think, having a sense of humor about our fandom is sorely missed many times, and it's so important.
Yes, it is. It is incredibly important to remember. And the thing is, people use it as a defense mechanism to say, oh, well, this is just a story about space wizards. But they do it when they want to avoid any sort of discussion about things that don't work or do work. And I think that something like the Lego Star Wars special, holiday special, which again, I wasn't nuts for it, but at the very least, it reminds us that it's okay to take a step back and remember it's just entertainment,
Right.
that it's nothing more than that. It's not that it's nothing more than that. Obviously, Star Wars, when it works, is something, you and I talk about this every week. It's something where we can carry forward lessons and ideas, and I can use it to teach my kids lessons about stuff, about understanding that not everybody's going to agree with you, that maybe you need to recognize the basic humanity in other people, even when you're diametrically opposed. And so Star Wars does function on that level, but at the same time, it's okay when it doesn't work. It's okay to say, that was a misfire. And here's why it didn't, catch on for me. Not everything needs to be the greatest Star Wars thing you ever saw, and not everything needs to be the worst. It's there, and it's okay to analyze it and judge it fairly.
Yeah, and I mean, I think in just any fandom, one of the things I'm thankful for is that there are going to be some things that work for me and some things that don't, and I need and I am okay with that. And part of that I think of as Resistance wasn't my favorite thing in Star Wars, but it's not like I hated it or anything. It's not like I'm mad at it or anything. I didn't love everything in all the sequels. Okay, that's fine. I'm not like, this is a thing where it's like, sometimes we take our fandom so seriously, we lose sight of the fact that they are meant to be fun and they are meant to be enjoyed, and if I don't enjoy everything, which is going to happen when something lasts for over 40 years, that's okay, and so, I think on that note, one of the things that I'm actually really thankful for is that the sequel trilogy wrapped up in a way that I enjoyed enough. So for me, I'm thankful for that. And now that era is over, and we have the Mandalorian now playing and building into that era. I'll be super excited to see where all of this goes. But I'm thankful that for the most part, I enjoy the Rise of Skywalker. I can still watch it and enjoy it. I've watched it a few times. I've actually seen it quite a few times because I saw it a bunch in the theater when we could still go to theaters. And, I had a good time in it. And there are still parts of it that move me and all those things. So I'm definitely thankful this Thanksgungan that happened. And that happened last year, but that bled into over this year. So
it hadn't dropped when Thanksgungan was happening last year.
Very true.
So totally valid, because our year is sort of like the fiscal year for certain companies. It's not defined January 1 to December 31.
The aggressive negotiations Thanksgungan year. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's right. Exactly. It's like any other, it's a fiscal or a religious calendar. And the thing is, I want to say this is, we all know I wasn't nuts for the Rise of Skywalker. Still, it is what it is. But at the same time, and this will sound like a backhanded compliment sort of thing, but in all honesty, what I like is that we have transitioned into the era of The Mandalorian very seamlessly, in that we, regardless of what you thought of the sequel trilogy, and people have varying opinions and they're all valid. It's fine. So it's whatever it meant to you. It's whatever worked for you. That's cool. It is a thing where I have never seen another franchise so seamlessly and effortlessly shift its direction without making an obvious sort of change. Let me give you an example. Batman. Right? After Batman, quote unquote, died after Batman and Robin, it was Warner Brothers' mission to tell everybody, this Christopher Nolan guy, this is going to be a totally different sort of Batman. This is a totally different sort of thing. And they hammered that. Mandalorian didn't do that. Disney didn't do that. Lucasfilm didn't do that. And they even went to great lengths to emphasize the fact that you were going to see something in The Mandalorian that tied into something Rey did in The Rise of Skywalker that was not something that was a major plot point or a spoiler or something you had to see to understand something else, but you saw a demonstration of that skill, that healing skill, carry forward. And the thing is, The Mandalorian is a huge success out of the gate. And Star Trek would be another franchise where I would sort of beat up on it a little bit, in that every time they decide to make a change of direction, they spend 6 months to a year talking about how it's such a big deal that they're making a change. We've obviously transitioned from one focus to another, and we have not made such a deal of it that anybody talks about an idea of triage or compensation or anything like that. It's simply, this is the part of the story we're going to tell now. And I'm very thankful that was handled so magnificently, honestly, between the sequels and The Mandalorian. Star Wars is still alive. Star Wars is still going, and we're having a conversation, but we're not talking about how it's different from the conversation we were having before.
Yeah, I'm thankful for, The Mandalorian really giving me all of these new characters to which, I've just fallen in love with, whether it's Din or Cara Dune or, Grief Karga or, IG-11 and, Moff Gideon, Baby Yoda. I mean, bringing in one of my favorite all-time characters of Bo-Katan back, just Queel. Mm-hmm. All of these incredible characters that they've created in The Mandalorian, to which, I love and I can't get enough of each week. And honestly, I'm like, man, if there's a way that we could have more grief in the episodes, or, I would love to see more Cara, or please, let, IG-11 not be dead somehow, or, oh, why is Queel dead? All of these kind of things. I think that's something that they've just done so well. And I love that this show has given me new Star Wars characters to care about. And what's amazing is that, when we started the show, there were no characters to care about because I didn't know any of them. These were all new characters in the Star Wars universe, and they have made me love them. And that is a testament to the show itself. So I'm very thankful for that.
Tied into the characters is something that I'm thankful for that's crazy when I really think about it. And I on occasion, I've stopped and thought about it, is with the movies, the Disney era movies, and, even with the prequels, there were leaks. There were people who spoiled things. There was stuff. I always go back in 1999. I think it was Cinescape magazine or whatever blew the whole thing about Mandalorian on the brain. I'm about to say it. Midichlorians. And I remember reading the article at the time and saying, what midichlorians? What are you talking about? And then I saw it in the movie. And it was one of those things where I said, oh, gosh, wow, this is a major thing for them to have gotten out. And it sort of took me out of it, sort of thing, for a hot minute. But I'm stunned continually by the fact that The Mandalorian, the crew working on it, is dedicated and professional enough that we didn't know about Baby Yoda before he debuted. I know nothing about season 2 week to week. Every single episode is a new discovery for me. Now, it might be because I've chosen to remove myself from the loop, but even when I've been removed from the loop, I found things out that I don't want to know. But it seems to me that the people working on The Mandalorian understand the delight of surprise and are willing to keep their mouths shut so that I can experience that joy firsthand.
Yeah, no, I agree. I love fans for doing that. I love that the beauty of, fans trying to protect the spoilers, especially if you stay up late, you're not spoiling the whole episode with a live tweet, that kind of thing. I think that's really special. And I have to say too, to go in a completely different direction. One of the things I'm really thankful for in this last year is, we continued the Thrawn Ascendancy trilogy.
Thank you for saying
and,
that. Yes.
Both of us have really enjoyed. We reviewed both the books over in the 602 Club together, and I mean that last book that just came out this year that was done by Zahn was so interesting and so much fun. I loved the inventiveness of it, and again, a lot like the Mandalorian, trying to create this whole new place in the galaxy to kind of tell a story. And like the Mandalorian, it's not characters that we're familiar with other really than Thrawn and some of the other characters that he's sprinkled in that we've gotten to know, like Admiral Arlani. And I have just really been enjoying it. And so I'm very thankful that they allowed Zahn to write this trilogy, and I can't wait to see how it wraps up.
I was actually having the thought earlier today before we recorded that Timothy Zahn was somebody involved with Star Wars that I was very grateful for, because he created a character, 30 years ago now, that we all fell in love with. And we fell in love with him so hard that they brought him back in Rebels. And we were still so in love with him that they reinvented his origin. And we were still so in love with him that he's getting a new trilogy of books. And I'm so grateful, not just that they carried forward, that they brought Thrawn back, that he's still going strong, that they trust Zahn enough and that they respect him enough to say, this is your character. You get to work on him in these books. They didn't bring in somebody else and hand them Zahn's character. They said, you know what? You get to do this. You're the guy that made him. You get to make sure that this goes right. And I think that shows a lot of wisdom on the part of whoever it is running that arm of Lucasfilm, to know that it means a lot, especially to longtime fans, that the author who created an enduring and loved character gets to continue doing that. Mm-hmm. That means a lot, because everything he does will have a mark of authenticity. Yep. Because we will say, oh, well, this is the guy who created him. This isn't just somebody picking up the torch. This is somebody, in a sense, it's like, if Lucas were by some miracle to come back and say, I'll direct an episode of The Mandalorian, it would have a mark of authenticity on it that supersedes everything else. Because especially if he used an old character, that's his thing. He created it. He's the be-all, end-all. And so Zahn being given the opportunity to be that final stamp of approval on a Thrawn thing, I think is a huge deal.
Well, and I think, it's got to be said that I'm thankful that Disney allowed us to see the final season of the Clone Wars. I don't know how we could have an episode of Thanksgungan and not talk about how glorious the episodes of the Clone Wars were, especially those final four, which, the only thing that I would ask Disney for is to give us a full soundtrack for, because I know they use an actual orchestra to record the final four episodes soundtrack, and give us that full deluxe soundtrack for those episodes, because they were beyond incredible with the soundscape that Kiner and his sons put together for those episodes. And I mean, well, John, I think you said it in one of our episodes before, which was, it was one of the best Star Wars movies I'd ever seen.
Absolutely true. And I am so grateful, not just for that final arc, because it is incredible. That is The thing is, there are certain things where when you watch them or you experience them or eat them, right? Like say it's a fine meal made by a world-renowned chef, and you taste that for the first time and you say, this is somebody at the top of their game who made something that was meant to be savored and enjoyed and appreciated. And that final arc of the Clone Wars, the Siege of Mandalore arc, is I've never been so affected by television as a fan of something since, and this is my touchstone to go back to, the end of Breaking Bad, because that was at the end of a journey, and that final 4-episode arc of the Clone Wars was like that final arc of Breaking Bad, where it felt complete. It felt like this was the necessary denouement that I had been missing to everything, and it came together perfectly. And everybody who worked on it deserves just a victory lap and a high five and everything like that. But that whole last season of the Clone Wars, and I know that this is going to sound crazy. I know nobody seems to be talking about it as much as I would like them to, but I was actually setting that whole last season. I was grateful for the introduction of the Bad Batch, because I loved that crew put together a lot. I'm thrilled that there's going to be another show. And I am also grateful that Clone Wars introduced a lot of characters that I loved over time. Both major characters like Ahsoka and minor characters along the way. But boy, oh boy, Wrecker's my hero, man. I love that guy. I love that character. And it was that whole Bad Batch arc was like in its own way, a love letter to fans to say, look at what we can do. We can bring these new characters in and we can make a brand new thing for you in the context of something you love. And that in and of itself is quite an accomplishment, especially on something on its, quote unquote, last season.
Yeah, I mean, I was just thinking about that and how much, I enjoy those characters as well. I love that we're getting some of them in like Black Series. They're releasing Hunter and Crosshair, which is really cool. And then Wrecker's coming out as a pop figure. So yes, I've ordered them all.
Yes.
And no, I really enjoyed those characters. And I thought that, since they are continuing, those characters in their own series, that it's a great and interesting way to bridge that time period, after the Clone Wars, and, who these characters might run into and what they might be up to. It's really interesting because, I feel like they could go in any different direction, and I'm just excited to see where that is, and the fact that we're going to be playing in that time period, which is, we don't know a ton about that time period, after Clone Wars and, before the Rebels series. The only thing we do have is, the Solo series, and that movie. And so, who knows where we're going to end up with those, Bad Batch characters.
The era that they're going to operate in is something that all of us have wanted to be viewing, experiencing, whatever, since Revenge of the Sith ended, was, oh my gosh, what happens next? But I'm glad that you mentioned Solo, because of course, it's well established. You and I love Solo. It's an amazing film. It does not get enough respect. And I love the fact that that hashtag Make Solo 2 Happen still exists, still is going strong, and there are still people unwilling to give up on it or willing to fight for it, to state it more positively. But what's great about it is that it is a genuine voice of love within the fandom. And I will credit the Snyder Cut for giving it even new life, because it's proof, especially in this era where they are shifting to more streaming options than theatrical, that maybe, just maybe, in their drive for content, we can get them to do it. We can get them to bring somebody on board. Maybe Bryce Dallas Howard instead of Ron Howard.
Seriously, after
direct
the
the sequel.
directorial work that she just did on that latest episode of The Mandalorian.
Are you kidding?
And we're recording before chapter 12 is dropping. So
right, we're after chapter 11, the heiress.
Yeah.
No, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. But
no,
yes.
I was just gonna say, like, no, absolutely. I mean, I'm right there with you. It's just definitely something that doesn't get enough play, and it's kind of silly that it doesn't. Because it really does deserve it. And this movie was just so good and has so much potential and storytelling potential. And again, I think the thing that I always think about it is, obviously, it's so in line with what they did with The Mandalorian, and about telling this story in a different area of the galaxy that has complete ties to everything else, but also allows you to really explore a whole new place and a whole new part. I just think is so great. And absolutely, with streaming, dive in there, give us more solo stories. You have these actors that I think, would come back and work for you. Like you said, heck, I would be totally fine getting Bryce Dallas Howard to come in and pick up that mantle if her dad isn't able to do that because of his other obligations. So, absolutely. And look, we also have the Clone Wars coming back, and we have the fact that the Kenobi series is going to be coming out. And, that is something that we have a good idea that it started off as an idea for a Star Wars story movie. And it looks like, we're going to be making that into, the series. And so why not? I mean, there's no reason not to. Honestly, I mean, at this point, I feel like if you do it right, Disney is already looking towards streaming anyway. I think you're just printing money at this point.
And you know what? That is something I'm thankful for. Is not the fact that Disney is printing money, but is the fact that a lot of the merchandising and focus of the streaming series and everything like that really seems to follow exactly what the fans of this franchise really would like to see. There's less of a drive to ignore what is a surefire hit. Let's put it that way. In that a lot of the things that are coming back very much speak to this idea of what fans love about what makes Star Wars work. An acknowledgement that to make a franchise exist in this current environment is to respect and acknowledge those fans. And that may sound a little bit weird to some people, but so let me just put a little capper on it to say that what they're making, what they're doing is unique and different without ignoring what worked before. It's not dropping things in favor of a new thing. It's saying it's doing exactly what I would think a successful franchise should do, which is it's looking back and it's saying, this is what people loved. So let's lean into that. Let's make more of what people loved. And that bleeds over into the merchandise where you see, I know it's a way for them to make money. I know that it's a capitalist thing, all blah, 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 all of that stuff. But at the very least, I'm getting Bad Batch figures. I'm getting a Cad Bane Black Series. I'm getting these things that I guess make me thankful for the fact that nostalgia works in 20-year cycles or 15-year cycles or whatever, because I'm so old in terms of a Star Wars fan that I guess my own nostalgia cycle refreshes every 15 to 20 years, and it just seems to work out pretty well.
I was thinking about that today, and how thankful I am for the fact that the merchandising has seemed to caught up with the fact that we love the Clone Wars.
Yes.
We love the Mandalorian, and I think it's interesting to see just how much of the push for the merchandise has been coming through things like the Mandalorian and the Clone Wars.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we're seeing so much of come out, whether it's, high-end stuff from like Sideshow or, things just like Black Series figures and those kind of things, pop figures, but these are characters to which we loved. And I think, it's interesting because I know that the merchandising for the Clone Wars never did great when it was out. And I think part of that is because it was on a network that was kind of hard to find. And, in the sense that, you had to have cable to watch it and all those kind of things. And it was a cartoon, and I think a lot of people just discounted it, but it became this legend that so many people got into because of Netflix. And, now we're being rewarded with being faithful to the things that we love in our fandom. And I think that's something that I'm thankful for, is that our faith is being rewarded, right? Our faith in good storytelling is being rewarded. And I think we're seeing that in the Clone Wars. I think we're seeing that in the Mandalorian. And I think we're seeing that play out then in the things that we can just buy from the fandom that we love, because they're realizing that, yes, they can make money on it, which is, come on, that's what they're in it for, the corporate wise. I know the people behind the scenes that are, working on the stories, they, Dave and John care so much about the story of the Mandalorian and making it, the best story they can. It's not just money for them. It's about telling good stories. So I know that.
Mm-hmm.
So don't hear me say I'm not putting that on their shoulders, but corporately, any corporation wants to make money. So, and I'm glad that they found that they can make money with the things that we actually love, which is great.
Yes. And I think you're very dead on with that, and I wanted to tack on to that as well, because you mentioned how the Clone Wars stuff is coming back. I am thankful that they're finding ways to bring in the lore into the Mandalorian in such a way that you and I just did a commentary series for the Mandalorian, and then after that I'm doing a rewatch of the series, introducing my wife to it. And in the last episode of The Mandalorian, when the Darksaber appears, I look at her and I say, "That's a pretty cool looking lightsaber that he has, right?" And she says, "Yeah." I said, "There's a story behind that thing. Maybe we should watch a couple episodes of the Clone Wars." That snowballs into when I was talking with a neighbor of mine, and I was talking about it, and it's very interesting. I'm very glad that we have another animated series coming out for Star Wars, because if there's anything I have used to bludgeon people into accepting the idea that the word cartoon is a dismissive word, and that it's not a cartoon, it's an animated series, it's an animated feature, those sorts of things. Once again, Star Wars wades into the arena to say, we can tell important stories in a different medium than what you're expecting, and it works. And you need to look at this medium differently. And I think that is really fascinating because of the fact that the last era that tried, many years ago, 30, 40 years ago, whatever, when Ralph Bakshi was working in animation, he was pushing with movies like Heavy Metal or his Lord of the Rings adaptation or Fritz the Cat or whatever, to introduce the idea that animation could be for adults as well. And Star Wars is once again a franchise that is using a different genre to tell its stories and therefore giving further weight to that medium.
Yeah, no, I cannot agree more. And I think you're absolutely right. It's so fun and it's it's really funny. So a story. We got some friends of ours into the Clone Wars, and it was really funny because they were over the other night and we were watching the episode of The Mandalorian, and they were talking about how like my wife would wear like these Ahsoka things and they just didn't get it, especially since they were like in just the first season and they thought she was kind of annoying and everything. And they got to the end and now they get it. Now they love her. Now she's their favorite, and they're watching Rebels now. And so, but it's just, it's such a joy because, to see people. And I think that's the joy of Star Wars. Like, you introduce this to somebody and they love it. Like, we introduced a friend of ours from the young adult group, my wife and I, and we had her over and we had her watch every Star Wars movie. We still have to watch Solo, but she's seen, all of the episodes now, and she's seen Rogue One, and like, she really loved Star Wars. She was getting so into it, and she's a person who didn't really know anything about Star Wars. She knew a few tiny little details here and there, but nothing major. Like, she didn't even know Luke and Leia were twins, So like, watching that through her eyes was just so much fun. And like, one of her favorite Star Wars movies is Episode 2 because she thinks Anakin is so hot and she loves Anakin, So it's like, but that's the joy of Star Wars, right? Is introducing people to these things. And I'm thankful for the opportunity to still continue to be able to do that and have people, fall in love with it like I did. There's something fun about sharing things that we love with the people that we love, and having them love it back. And having that experience a couple times here in the last year has been so joyful.
And you know what? I think that brings us to a good point for me to kick off the schmaltzy part of our annual Thanksgungan celebration. The part where I say, I am very thankful for the people that choose to listen to this show. I'm very thankful for the people that choose to interact with us online. But more importantly than anything else, I am, once again, as every year, thankful for Star Wars itself, because it has brought so many wonderful friends into my life, like you, who wind up being people who are incredibly important to my day-to-day existence, to all of the things that go into what it means to be human, to understand the beautiful variance and difference and wonder that there is in this world and within each person. And so I am once again thankful for Star Wars itself, for being a gateway to so many wonderful experiences and friendships that have come into my life, that I will forever be grateful that a young kid who went to USC Film School got in his head one day, well, fine, they won't let me make a Flash Gordon movie. I'm going to make my own space adventure.
Yeah, I mean, it's so true, and I'm thankful for this show and the community that we have around it. And honestly, I feel like that community is based around the idea that we love Star Wars and we're just here to have a good time about Star Wars. We're not here to overly complain about Star Wars or to think that Star Wars has to be our everything. I think we're here because we love Star Wars, and it's brought things that we care about into our lives, like actual friends that we care about, you know? And to me, that's something that's really special. But at the same time, you know, Star Wars isn't my everything. You know, I have things that I care much more about in my life than Star Wars. And that's why, you know, whether I love a movie or not in the Star Wars galaxy, it's not going to kill me. It's not going to change my life or who I am. Whether I love an episode of The Mandalorian or not, you know, whether I love the next book or comic or, you know, video game or whatever, you know, it's just, that's not it, you know. And so, you know, this is important to me in the sense that it's something that I really enjoy. I love the storytelling. I love the themes and the narratives of Star Wars and what it can do and what it can teach and all that kind of stuff. But in the end, it is just entertainment. And I'm much more blessed because of the beauty of the fact that this entertainment has brought me friends. And I think that's the thing that I really appreciate about Star Wars. And so, yeah, I mean, I'm right there with you. Absolutely. 100% thankful that, you know, Star Wars has given me this. And, you know, to be slightly less schmaltzy, because I wanted to get this in there because I didn't want to forget, but I'm actually really thankful that we got a brand new Star Wars video game at the end of last year, Fallen Order, and I really enjoyed Fallen Order. I had a great time with the story. It was so much fun. It used a ton of great things from the Star Wars galaxy in it, you know, and I thought they did a fantastic job. And it was just, I personally am much more of a fan of games where it's a single player. I'm not as good of a multiplayer. And so I really am thankful that they gave us that game, and I hope we get a sequel to it because it was a game that was good enough and created characters to which I enjoyed being with that I would like to play more with. And so, yeah, I mean, like, that's the kind of thing, like, Star Wars is so cool, and it can do good stories in video games, in comics, and in books, and in movies, and in animation, and it's like, that's the cool thing about this saga, I think, you know. And then, like you said, it can transcend that completely by helping bring people into your life that can change your life in the best ways possible. And so regardless of all the fights that happen on Twitter, which are meaningless, the best thing about Star Wars, as always, John, I think for both of us, is that it gave us each other, and it gave us true friendship, true brotherhood. And, you know, that's the thing I think we always come down to in Thanksgungan. And that's what really matters, you know. And that's when you know something is good for your life, is when it brings people that actually matter and are good for you.
I don't think it could have been said better. And so I think that is a great way for us to wrap up our Thanksgungan. What are we having this year? Eggs? Let's say eggs.
Yeah. Ooh.
We're going to have Thanksgungan
so
eggs.
Deviled eggs?
Oh, we'll have deviled, we'll have scrambled, we'll have sunny side up. Eggs of all sorts, my friend. Maybe a few frog legs here and there too. But if people want to find you on social media or other places online, where can they find you?
On social media, you can find me on pretty much every social media platform out there that I'm a part of. I'm going to be under Matt Rushing 02 if I'm there. And then you can also find the 602 Club, which is my General Geek show over off of TFM. You can follow that as well on Twitter, as well as the show. It's a podcast where we talk about all the fandoms we love. And as you know, we mentioned, we cover quite a bit of Star Wars over there. We do like actual, here we don't tend to do too many reviews specifically. So we do reviews over there of things like books and movies and TV shows and all that stuff. John's over there frequently. We're doing that because Of course he would be. And so
right.
you can also find me over there doing Literary Treks as well as The Orb. Literary Treks is a podcast about the books and the comics of Star Trek. And then The Orb is all about Star Trek Deep Space Nine. And then on this network, here on the Nerd Party, you can find me doing Owlpost with Drea Kaufman, where we talk about the Harry Potter series each and every week, one chapter at a time. And honestly, we are coming to a close with that. You know, we only have about, I think, maybe 15 episodes left or something. It's crazy. So... But John, if people want to catch up with you, see what you are doing beyond aggressive negotiations, where can people find you?
I'm not doing anything really of note beyond aggressive negotiations, but you can find me online as Kessel Junkie, KESSELJUNKIE. Look for me over on Letterboxd. I'm not watching as many movies as I was at the beginning of 2020 because everything is just getting wow. But you can find me as that user handle on your social network of choice. You can find me over on, as we record this, I've taken a little bit of a break, but kesseljunkie.com, where I love to write, share art, those sorts of things. And you can find me here on the Nerd Party on House of Fincher, where we talk about the works of David Fincher. There is an upcoming show where we're going to be looking at another director, and you can find me on various archived shows and everything like that. But honestly, let's be honest. Thanksgungan is all about the spotchka. And so I think I need to get back to it. So Jedi Master Matthew Rushing, my dear friend, my dear, dear friend, I think it's time that we close these negotiations.
Well, John, negotiations are closed, and happy Thanksgungan.
We celebrate a day of peace, a day of harmony, a day of joy we all can share together joyously.
Join the revolution. Join the Nerd Party.